Om Tavakatamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavipiriditam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvignantiye Bhurita Janaha. Thy words of immortality, praised by sages, are full of divine glories. They eradicate sin and destroy the threefold miseries of life. Those, O Lord, who receive thy message are the greatest benefactors in this world. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We continue where Swami Nikhilananda left. On page 125, he says, "There is no use in merely making a noise if you want to establish the deity in the shrine of your heart, if you want to realize God." This, picking up the context, saying that people talk so much about divinity, etc., but they haven't yet realized that divinity. And so it's only mere noise. Then he says, first of all, purify the mind. In the pure heart, God takes his seat. This has been the constant theme of all higher spiritual pursuits. And it's found in all religions. He will speak about how to go about it there. How do we purify the mind? Well, by thinking of the reality first. Then we have something called the mind itself is malleable. It's plastic. The brain, of course. Every time you perceive something, your brain undergoes a change. Persistently done, you rewire the brain. In fact, the rewiring is constantly going on, and you can, again, mold your brain, and as a consequence, your own thinking, as you keep on modifying your thoughts. You are, for all practical purposes right now, we are what a brain is. And Sri Ramakrishna is very clear. If you think of purity, you will become pure. If you constantly think of trash, you will become that. Like the great Buddha says, as you think, so will you be. As you will think, so will you become. He also was against the constant harping of, oh, people are sinners, and even people have begun believing that, oh, I'm a sinner. Swami Vivekananda says that's standing libel on human nature. How can you ever say that? Saying, ye are the children of immortal bliss. How can you start believing in a contrary way? So these thoughts have to be constantly repeated in our minds, and that's what makes for purity. That's the reason why I said, in the pure heart, God takes his seat. One cannot bring the holy image into the temple if the droppings of bats are all around. The 11 bats are the 11 sense organs. 5 organs of action, 5 of perception, and the mind. So in the previous, you can say, section, he describes a person called Podo, he goes into a dilapidated temple which has been abandoned, which has no image, and he goes on blowing his conch shells. That's a kind of a auspicious sound to signal people that there's some worship. And people come and they say, oh, what happened? The floor is unclean, there's dirt everywhere, there's no image, and Podo is standing in the corner and blowing his conch shells, saying, you make confusion worse, confounded. You haven't cleaned everything here, you've not installed the image, and what are you blowing the conch for? That's the context. So he says, one cannot bring the holy image into the temple if the droppings of bats are all around. So that's the bats. But then he uses that to signify that these bats, yeah, nothing against bats, but the other sensory and the motor organs. What happens is we take in the world. The world is outside, but light reflects on that and comes in, and we take. It is a semblance of the world, and we have our own perceptual, cognitive biases and cultural biases and so many biases that we now mold an inner world within us. The world outside, maybe whatever. It's how we interpret and react to it. So we have the sensory, and the reaction is the motor organs. So these are the 5 sensory and the 5 motor organs that every being has. Living being, of course. And the mind is common to all because it has to coalesce and correlate all what the data which is coming in. So it has to be, there has to be one conductor conducting all the music. So it's a mind. So these are the 11 bats, and they are screaming. All these things are pouring in, and there's an action and there's a reaction, and all this screaming going on inside like a bats, and those things have to be clean in the sense of he's speaking about yoga, where you have to first curb the sensory and the motor organs. First the motor organs, of course. Sit down quietly. Don't move. Okay. Even the urge to even itch should be curbed. So perfectly still. So you curb your sensory organs first. And then the motor organs. And how do you do that? Now that is what is called yoga. So then what happens is you focus on an idea which you revolve in the mind. It's over. So what happens is you are shifting attention from the senses or whatever data has been coming in, and you're focusing it on the mind. So the data might come in, and let it come in, but the mind has ignored it. It does not read it. So this is how you keep on curbing the 11 bats, the sensory and the motor organs along with the mind. So the best way to engage the mind with an idea is to kind of repeat a mantra. Or you can, through kind of, there's something called a mindfulness. Last retreat we spoke about mindfulness. It's like using your breath work to enter the body. I mean, they say enter the body. A lot of teachers say enter the body. Enter the mind with that. That is where you're supposed to go in. Because you get stuck up with the idea of a body, then your body consciousness becomes so dominant in your consciousness. It is helpful, but real yoga will come when you use the breath work to enter the mind. And the mind is not some one-dimensional kind of screen or something like that. There are dimensions within dimensions within dimensions in the mind. So you enter, you use the breath, and then the breath becomes still. In the higher, you can say, meditative practices, you hardly become aware that you are breathing, and then that also stops. You are not focused on the breath at all. So the breath was just a kind of a means, a medium. You've entered in. And once you enter in, you're not bothered with the breathing. You're sitting down, you're not even aware of you're sitting down somewhere. Your entire focus is in the mind. Okay. So that is what the whole thing is. And say, first of all, invoke the deity and then give lectures to your heart's content. Yeah, that's the context that's going on. Where you're talking to a group of people there. So invoke the deity. But Vedanta says the deity is already present within you. Oh yeah. Do you have to get it from somewhere outside? No. You see, this outside business has spoiled actually the idea of religion. Vedanta says it's within, and from within everything comes out. It's not the other way around. The other way around is something called materialism. This is called spirituality. So the deity already exists. What is the deity? In the Upanishad, the deity is called the Atman, that resplendent, infinite dimension within all of us. Okay. Now, so what is invoke the deity? That is acknowledge the deity. That you have that infinite dimension and you're invoking that. You're acknowledging that. And then give lectures to your heart's content. And then if you want to, that is, if you don't invoke your own spirituality, what kind of spirituality you're going to talk about? Like Sri Ramakrishna says, no, there's a person who says, oh my God, my father has so many cows in his stable. Well, only horses are put in the stable. So it means that his father does not have any cows. And then somebody interjects, and maybe no horses even. So it is saying something which there has been no kind of authenticity there. So here when you install the deity, you invoke, acknowledge that you are that, and when you don't need to go lectures. Your own speech and your own actions are going to get transformed. This is the transformation that is extremely essential in. So your life is undergoing a tremendous transformation. This is spiritual transformation. Then he says, first of all, dive deep. Plunge to the bottom and gather up the gems. So it's a semblance of a song he used to sing. Dub, 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 rup sagarir amar mon. So dive deep, O mind, and down to the uttermost depths you'll find gems of great price. That is what it is. Merely floating on the surface is not yoga. You see, as you have said, that there is a transformation that takes place. And the transformation takes place at a very deeper level, not a superficial level. You might put all the religious marks, you might put on a religious face also for the time being. But you are kidding yourself. So the inner transformation comes through, again, as I say, the mind, and the mind works on the prana, that's vital force. Nowadays, everywhere, people are doing pranayama and pranayama, and they're teaching pranayama. It's a difficult science and it has to be learned correctly. So the mind transforms that prana, and the prana transforms the senses, and the senses transform the body. So this is the transformation. Never ever think that, oh, this is what I am, this is what I will be. People say, this is what I am. They don't leave any scope for improvement. This is what I can be. And the whole thing, the whole responsibility is thrown on you. Nobody is going to do that. You want to change? You can change. You don't want to change? Stay like that. So this is what this idea is. Yoga is transformation of oneself. I mean the higher implications. It takes you away from the old, we have neurologists like to, you can say, classify the brain into three parts. The old reptilian brain, then the old kind of limbic system, that's that ancient brain, that fear and all these things, emotions. And then we have the higher brain, the cortex and all that, cerebral cortex. So they talk to each other. One influences the other constantly. Yoga will keep you on the cerebral side, and that will dictate everything. So everything. Let's not go into neurology, but you get the idea. So, and this transformation then percolates down to your nervous system and your sensory and everything, and there's a transformation that takes place. This is what it is. So, first of all, dive deep, plunge to the bottom and gather up the gems. So, what are the gems? The mind has, unbelievably, many treasures, or you can say its powers, call it gems, and which we are completely ignorant of. We go around like beggars. We have nothing. We are nobody. What's this? Don't you understand what you have? All these gems are inside. Really? Yes, you're heir to all these things. You don't even know. Nobody has told us. That's the idea. Nobody has told us. Yeah. So all these treasures are there within you, within the mind, within the deeper layers of the mind. And you've got to go down deeper and deeper and take what is yours. You don't take someone else's. You've got plenty. Then he says, then you can do other things. You can do other things, whatever you want. Once you've got, this is what happens. In spiritual life, people start with the idea, okay, I'm nothing, I'm nobody, and go with that confidence that, yes, I have all these things, and I'm going to start this journey. And once you have that, you see how your talk and walk changes. Once you know. If you have $1,000 in your wallet, then your behavior itself changes. If you have $1 in your wallet, your behavior changes. So we are kind of fixated on these things. So, but similarly, when you have all these treasures, you will know, oh my God, I'm rich. Spiritual riches are yours. But then he says, but nobody wants to plunge. Nobody wants to plunge. Why? But that's the rule of the world. The Bhagavad Gita says, many thousands strive to know God. And out of the thousands and thousands, some attain that goal. So, this is it not possible for everybody? It is possible. It depends on one's intensity, one's focus, one's desire. People want all these mortal things. If you ask them, you like some immortal things? Oh yeah, you've got to climb a few rocky mountains and cross some oceans. Oh no, who's going to do all that? Who takes all the trouble? Then stick around with the mortal things, perishable things. People are without spiritual discipline and prayer, without renunciation and dispassion. So, people are without spiritual discipline and prayer. What does it do? Page 125, last line, and people are without discipline, spiritual discipline. Like, suppose you want to be somebody. Suppose you want to become a kind of a marathon runner. You don't go and meditate. That will come afterwards. You need meditation to become a marathon runner also. But you will undergo that specific discipline, that diet and all these things to make you. Because last Sunday we had a Seattle marathon, down in our neighborhood. So you will have to, and it takes years, and you must have some qualifications to become like that, and then you start. So spiritual life also is something like that. You must have some qualification. What is those qualifications? Prayer, renunciation, dispassion, the idea of sacrifice, the idea of prayer. Prayer in the sense of not, oh God, I've got a stomachache. Oh God, I want $1 billion. That, not all those things. So it's just prayer for spiritual strength, for knowledge, for devotion. That is prayer. Without renunciation, without the idea of sacrifice. We want everything and we want this also. No, you've got to let go of certain things. So once you start letting go, that is idea of renunciation. So, at times we let go of all. We have let go physically. Mentally, we have not let go. We have gone. We held on to these things. Oh, 20 years back, somebody had spoken harshly to me. I still remember that. I have not let it go. 20 years ago, but you have changed. So many things have changed. No, that thought, that anger is still there. So we need to give up certain things which are harmful for spiritual growth. That has to be taken. And dispassion, it's in the sense of giving up the idea of greed, in the sense, I have 5 pairs of shoes, but I want 50 pairs of shoes. I'll be happy with that. Really? You hardly wear your 5 pairs of shoes. And you keep on. There's a difference between need and greed. So it's just, resources are all finite. And if you keep on taking what you can afford and then taking others' stuff, that also becomes bad. So that is greed, that is dispassion. And then such people, they learn a few words and immediately start to deliver lectures there. Oh yeah. In the sense of, you see, go anywhere, people start giving you advice. They don't have the idea, like they can't put themselves in your shoes, or they don't have that adequate empathy to understand. They will start giving you advice. Yeah. And it's all over the place. In India, we know, when you see somebody who's starting giving advice, we run away. Like Girish Ghosh, and we are studying his life every Friday. So Sri Ramakrishna tells him, do this. And they say, enough. I've heard enough of advice. I've given cartloads of advice myself. Do something. So that was, he's telling his guru, so he can press his demands, giving advice. So it's like that. They learn a few words and immediately start to develop, giving you advice all over the place. It is difficult to teach others, yes, because the human existence is very complex. Right now we are here, but there are so many factors playing on us. Physical, mental, moral, ethical, spiritual even. And then there are genetic and epigenetic and this, evolutionary, so many factors, all are converging right now to bring us right now what we are. It's difficult to understand people, very difficult. So what happens? We become judgmental. We put a label and that's what. Not knowing how many factors have influenced that person. That person is helpless. Evolutionary factors. What's that? Evolutionary factors. Environmental factors. So many things are there. So all of these things, they influence us. Influence our decision, influence our moods, influence our thoughts, influence our words, everything. So that's why it's difficult to teach others. Once you, and that's the reason why in ancient India, the student used to go and live with the teacher. And the teacher, the student, they studied each other. And after they have studied each other, then the teaching used to take place. In many of the Upanishads, you'll find some students, they are sages themselves. They go to another higher sage, a better sage, with some questions. They're saying, you come here, stay for a year, practice spiritual disciplines. At the end of 1 year, put your questions. And if I know, I will tell you. Oh, and for us, you have questions immediately. So they have studied each other. So they know each other. What should be spoken to each student. And each student is different. Today we have kind of made everybody should be same. It's not just possible. You have one set of instructions for everybody. Yes, there are general instructions. But then when it comes to specific inner development, each person has a different set of needs, a different mind. And that's the reason why Vedanta understood this a long time ago. One coat does not fit all. So you have different people with different sizes of coats. Give them that sized coat. And that will make that student grow. If you downsize somebody or raise somebody which you don't know, that's going to create a lot of trouble. So, and of course, then the teacher has to have the insight into that person's mind and heart. That's the reason why I say, only if a man gets a command from God after realizing him, he is entitled to teach. That's a way, Swami Vivekananda. It's a, Sri Ramakrishna said, you will teach. Okay. Said, not me, I'm not going to do it. Say, what? Your very bones will go about it and do that work. Because he had said, Naren will teach the world. So, and teaching the world, that is, he has to go about teaching. And teaching is not an easy kind of work, because you have to give a part of yourself. People say, oh, the teacher. No, the teacher gives a part of himself or herself. That is a teacher. Otherwise, you go to a teacher, the teacher wants $50, and you give, the teacher gives a set of instructions. Stand on one leg for 10 minutes. And you have paid $50 for this torture. So you have to be careful. And there are these gullible, and especially where religion is concerned, people become so gullible. Yes, just take it. Intelligent people, but where it comes to religion and spirituality, they are like babes. That's because they have not explored their own spirituality. So, when you have touched the feet of God, then you go and then you say, yes, go about it. So, this is what is. So, Sri Ramakrishna will say, Chapras Deva, that is, you get a stamp of authority to go out and you do that. And Sri Ramakrishna also, there was one Pandit, Pandit Sashadhar Tarka Chudamani, great Pandit. So he asked him. So he used to give lectures on the 6 systems of Indian philosophy. Now these 6, each system is a very profound system. So he was, in that time, when Sri Ramakrishna was there, and he had created a big stir. And he had come to meet Sri Ramakrishna. So he's saying, have you received a command from God? Command? What? No. Sri Ramakrishna, who's going to listen to you? That is, people will come, they'll listen, but that lasting impact is not going to be there. So that's the reason why he's saying the teacher gives a part of himself. And what does a teacher have? If you go to a teacher of spirituality, he's going to give you spirituality. If you go to a teacher who teaches physics, he's going to give you physics. Maths, he's going to give you maths. That physics or maths, that professor has spent his life in that. So he is giving a part of himself, that knowledge. In the process, the student grows and the teacher also grows. Okay. Then, thus conversing, the master came to the west end of the veranda. That is, they were there at the grove of 5 trees called the Panchavati, and then they come towards Sri Ramakrishna's room on the west side. That is facing the Ganges. M stood by his side, the recorder stood by his side. Sri Ramakrishna had repeated again and again that God cannot be realized without discrimination and renunciation. Discrimination in the sense of discernment. What is discernment? Discernment between the real and the unreal. This world, people say, yes, this world is constantly undergoing transformation. And what is transitory can never be the real thing. You have not seen the end of the sequence of changes. And these changes are constant. The nature of this external world is constant transformation. It's transitory. And yet we cling to the idea, yeah, within this, okay, some changes are slow and some changes are, we don't like that. We use that, in a twisted way. We see the same river and flowing. He's saying you don't see the same river 2 times. The water has flowed, but we see the same river. These changes are going on, but we see ourselves, oh, that is a permanent thing. That is never, so, but how to go about it? Here it starts here. Again, like I said, in Vedanta, everything starts here. Look at all the things which your ego has created. There's a mental world inside. It's a grandiose vision of yourself and your successes in life. There are no failures there. There you are the king or the queen or the prince or princess, whatever. There you're the ruler. There you're the boss. So this is the world that has been created in the mind by the ego. So it has taken materials from everywhere, taken from the mind and from the senses and everything, and created an. That has to go. So what is discrimination? That which you had created through a false sense of self, through a kind of a deception. It's all this kind of, that has to go. And that is difficult to give up. Yes, very difficult. But what about me? I'll be left poor. In fact, you will be the richer if you do that. So that is discernment and renunciation, giving up. This made M extremely worried. It will worry everybody. He had married and then was a young man of 28, educated in college in the Western way. That is, we had the Indian system of education, and the British had brought in a modern education. That's why he said the Western way. That is education in the English language with subjects. Having a sense of duty, he had asked himself, do discrimination and dispassion, that discernment and discernment, mean giving up lust and greed? He was really at a loss to know what to do there. See, this world that has been built by ego, there it is, like I said, it creates. That's because it has now become a master. And the real selves have become the servants, the slaves. So that the plug has to be pulled out. It has created this world of ours, our own world. Like there's something called the world that is common to everybody. But like I said, we all have our individual worlds created. So, and the whole thing is, he had a sense of duty towards wife and children and this and that. And he was under the impression that everything has to be abandoned. No, you keep on doing your duty, but without the sense that ego, that I am the doer, I am responsible for this and I am responsible for that. God is responsible for everything. So Sri Ramakrishna says, what's his knowledge? God is the doer. That is the reality. There's a reality that is there. And ignorance is that I am the doer. So he is now in a conflict. Now what to do? Many people, we want to realize God, but how do I abandon all these things? What do I give up? And what he says that this modern education makes us so enmeshed with this world. Yeah, you got to do this, do that, do that. This is your duty. Keep on. And you get more and more enmeshed with this world. And there it is. So we are caught up in all these things. To give it up, there's a. But this is what he has been taught. And now suddenly, spiritual realization will not come if I don't disentangle. So that is the conflict. We will see what happens next Friday, next Wednesday in the class. So on Friday we were taking the remaining sections of Girish Ghosh. Sunday, of course, we have stages of spiritual, you can say, knowledge. Sunday, that is 10 a.m. We have mothers, children, and we have Ram Nam also. Okay. We stop here for questions if there are. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Okay, there are no questions here. So, you have any questions here?
So, you said the brain gets rewired as we think pure thoughts. Is it the mind changing or is the brain changing?
The question is, suppose we start changing our brain with thoughts, pure thoughts. Is the mind changing or the brain changing? Both change. Now, there's something called the neuroplasticity. The brain changes. The mind, of course, changes. So, it's constant change. That gives us hope. Yeah. Okay. I didn't like this, or this aspect of me is not kind of good. So am I condemned? No. You can change. That is the whole essence of human life. You can change. So it's and meditation is the very best way to change your brain fast. I mean, change for the better. You can change your brain in good or bad or whatever, but meditation, and that's the reason why now it is understood that one must learn to meditate. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of your own old reptilian and your own, you can say, limbic system. They will hijack. The way they have hijacked everything, whatever. So we think we are in control, but hardly any control. We don't have any control about food, sleep, this, that, nothing. It's all controlled by the system. So to get control, develop your cerebral cortex, study books, that's good. Meditate. That's the best way to get control of yourself. Okay. So we stop here for today. Om, peace, peace, peace.